Welcome to Christian von Carmian's Know Your Nuns November. All of the videos are available within a playlist for Battle Sisters Detachment Week. This is the final detachment of the series unless a new detachment comes out and we have part 6 of 5. The other detachments have all been rather general. Most units will work well in an army with those attachments. Characters are more desirable in the Hallowed Martyrs, jump pack units have more use in the Army of Faith, Sacrosancts and Paragon Warsuits get bonuses in the Champions of Faith, but the units you use in those detachments appear in the other detachments. Welcome to the weird cousin of the Adepta Sororitas, the one who is serving a custodial sentence and gets to go about it in an unusual way. The strange units of the Ecclesiarchy come to the fore in the Penitent Host. Let me explain how Penitent Host armies should be. You can have a force that is entirely units with the Penitent keyword. Penitent engines running around scoring victory points, small groups of archoflagellants sitting on objectives, bigger units flensing their way through enemy hordes, while Repentia cut up their elite with massive eviscerators, all under the watch of Ministorum priests. You could have a force like that, but it won't be too effective. You should have many other kinds of units. The Adepta Sororitas range of units is available to you. Seraphim are faster than Penitent engines. Battle Sisters have a special rule that lets them hold objectives even if they are destroyed, without having to use a command point on Stratagem. Paragon Warsuits can cut through heavy infantry with their Warblades and also melt tanks with their multi-melters, and their +1 to hit and +1 to wound against those tanks. It's better to think of the Penitent Host a lot like the Champions of Faith. There will be combat units, and in the Champions of Faith, these combat units are the Celestian Sacrosancts and the Paragon Warsuits. In the Penitent Host, some or all of those units should be swapped for Repentia and Mortifiers. But keep the core of the army. This is still an Adepta Sororitas army, we're not an Ecclesiarchy off-branch totally separate Codex army. You'll want Battle Sisters, Dominions, Seraphim. All of these perform their usual roles just as well as in the Penitent Host as they would in pretty much any other detachment. And we have a tiny bit of stratagem and enhancement support for these units. So don't go pure Penitent. Unless you want to take all of my advice, get to the end of the video, see the army lists, come back to this core idea and say, oh well, I liked the outer bits where you talked about the Penitent units and I'm going to ignore everything else. God Emperor bless and protect you. Like the magnetic case from Tabletop Stronghold will protect your models. The Penitent units are extra fragile. Get to battle with them, and then unleash them. Don't let them get broken during transportation. Please, please do not eat the magnets. There is a mega sale ongoing, the Black Friday mega sale, where you get 40% off on so many products. And outside of the Black Friday mega sale, which ends in early December, you can use the code VON25 to get 25% off. Don't eat the magnets, don't eat the magnets. I don't want that to be on my gravestone or for it to be the quote of the video, but don't eat the magnets. And while you have options with your magnetic case, there's also 2 options for the detachment rule. One version is in the faction pack, which is an explainer of what the literal reading of the rule as written in the codex is. That you have to pick a vow at the start of each battle round, so your vows will be active in battle rounds 1, 2, and 3. You have to pick a vow and you can't use each one more than once. The second version is in the balance patch document and the app. You can pick a vow, but you don't have to pick a vow. You decide at the start of the battle round if you want to pick a vow you haven't already had, or if you want to pass on having a vow this battle round. Almost everyone uses this version, not just because it is better. So you don't have to use a vow in Battle Round 1. Right, the Penitents are desperate for redemption. We're not after the blood of martyrs, this is the blood of criminals, and we're cleansing our sins in the blood of the enemy. At the start of the battle round, you can pick one of these vows of atonement that is in effect until the start of the next battle round. Each one can only be picked once per battle, but we're gonna see some ways around that, and there are 3 options. Path of the Penitent. You add 3 inches to the movement characteristic of Penitent models from your army. Absolution in battle. Each time a unit from your army is selected to fight, if you made a charge move with that unit this turn, which could be through heroic intervention, then you get +1 to the attacks and strength of melee weapons equipped by Penitent models in the unit. When you heroically intervene, you are still charging. The charge bonus it's saying you're not getting is the charge bonus, which means you fight first. Otherwise, you can have any other charge bonuses, like this one. The third vow is Death Before Disgrace. Each time a Penitent model from your army is destroyed by a melee attack, if it hasn't fought already this phase, on a 2+, it can fight on death. You have to decide which one you're using at the start of the battle round, so if you go second, you are telling your opponent, I'm going to be fighting on death, or I'm going to be really good at destroying you when I charge. Telegraphing attack, I'm about to mass charge you. Your turn is first. If the enemy has a flexible army, then your opponent can plan to shoot you more in the case of fight on death, and tie you up in combat in the case of the second one, so you can't be charging. Going second when playing this detachment is not ideal, but we have to cope and endure for the God Emperor. Opponents will rarely change their plan based on your plans to plan around the plans that you made, and while you could plan around their plans that they will make to counter your plans, better to just stick to the original plan. Know what you're going to do in your coming turn. My favourite vow is the Path of the Penitent, which you use when you want to get closer to charge. It is 3 inches more to the movement, it's not an advanced move, it can be on top of an advanced move, it doesn't stop an advanced move, and aside from the Penitent engines or units using Lash of Guilt that can advance and charge, because you're not advancing, your Penitent units are moving 10 inches and then are able to charge. That's very good for getting the units you want into the enemies that you want. I will be going over the Penitent units with you and what kind of units each one should be targeting. After that vow, then I'm going to use Death Before Disgrace to fight on death in the next battle round where the enemy fights back and it's all very messy around the objectives. It's easier to plan this if going second, as you will declare it at the start of your opponent's turn. You will be able to see, I am going to be charged by a lot of demons right now. I hope we can do some damage on the way out. It's a takedown? The way Fight on Death works, you are activating your models but not selecting a unit to fight, and this happens after the enemy has made their attacks but before they consolidate. So some abilities that you have will work, some will not. I think the Repentia rerolls will work because the Superior is going to be either there or just died but isn't taken off the board yet, so you will get your rerolls to hit and your rerolls to wound. But you can't use the trigger word of the Arcoflagellants because your unit has not been selected to fight. That is a step within the fight phase. The enemy unit was selected to fight, has made their attacks, you now get to make some attacks, but you're not selected to fight as a unit. Only certain models are fighting. Believe me that after looking into this more, there is no trigger word available. Absolution in battle is the vow I use the least. It sounds good, charges are stronger, but with the Path of the Penitent, you're able to move your units faster to get them to their preferred victims, and then you won't need extra strength or attacks. Path of the Penitent is the one to use on the go turn to get loads of your units into combat. You get closer for the charge. And charge rolls are the most important role in a combat army. So that's where we're going to use our miracle dice. Because if you're using the Path of the Penitent vow, and you go close to the enemy, and then the charge failed, well, now I'm going to go find a bridge over a river. And looking at that pretty view is required to recover from this bad mood. The vows are all for Penitent models. This is different to Penitent units. Adding a priest to a Sanctifier unit will make them Penitent keyword unit because units share all keywords, but most of the Penitent Host rules are referring to Penitent models. There is a rule distinction between a model that already came with that keyword and a unit that is using that keyword. The Adepta Sororitas units are fragile. Penitent Host units are even more fragile. Arcoflagellants and Repentia have a 6+ invulnerable save on their Toughness 3 bodies. Feel No Pain won't help you that much. You need to be able to use cover and have your models out of line of sight to hide your units until you expose them, only to charge. The detachment rule gives you 3 abilities. Plan for 3 good turns or at least 2 good turns. I played against a Tyranid Vanguard Onslaught army recently. The Tyranids went first, and really fast-moving Raveners moved 10 inches and advanced in the center. Von Ryans came out of cover on my left flank, and on the right a mass of Hormigans came straight for my Arcoflagellants with a 16-inch move. They can all advance and charge in this detachment. The Raveners charge my Scouting Dominions in the center. They are a screen, their job is to take charges so the Battle Sisters and more fragile units can survive, but only 4 Dominions died. On the left flank, the Von Ryans infiltrating and fast moving let them charge a squad of Repentia, and I I passed every save on the Superior's 3+ save and the use of a miracle dice. Oops! And on the right flank, the Hormigans failed their charge into the Arcoflagellants, leaving me with an easy turn 1 charge and a lot of dead gaunts. What happened? They weren't planning for 2 to 3 good turns. In metaphor terms, they had 5 baskets and a lot of eggs, and they distributed those eggs poorly. There will be a go now turn for the Penitent Host, but don't rest your entire game plan on the badly whipped shoulders of the Penitents in this one turn. There's a lot more to it than 1 turn's worth of charging, because if that doesn't go well, you're gonna lose very quickly. Better to lose slowly and have a narrow defeat at worst. There's a lot of stratagems available, as always. These are pretty good stratagems, but mostly on the Penitent units. First one is for any unit that has the grenades keyword, because it's grenades. It's grenades, don't forget grenades. As melter weapons are not always the best at wounding tanks, the humble grenade comes in. Repentia have the grenades keyword. I modelled a masked Repentia with a grenade as a reminder of this. First actual Penitent Host stratagem is Final Redemption. When one of your Penitent units is destroyed within range of an objective marker, that objective marker remains under your control, until the enemy takes it off you at the start or end of any phase. I know it says turn, but the rules commentary clarifies, actually we meant to say phase. So if you're trying to make an all-Penitent unit army work, and I never said that isn't fun, but it's harder to get it to work, then at least this stratagem lets you hold objectives if the enemy shoots you off. The Votan mini-Terminator types teleport in and blam your 3 Arcoflagellants on your home objective. You can keep the objective as they then waddle forward to try and take it. But Battle Sisters exist. They do the same thing, and they can use a simulacrum to generate miracle dice. But this is a good stratagem for mortifiers. If the enemy charges you, you have a 2+ fight on death all the time regardless of vow. So they may shoot you to try and get rid of the mortifier and stop you from scoring victory points. Final Redemption lets you keep the objective. Speaking of fun, if you click the like button on YouTube, a happy face pops up. I don't know how long that feature will be around. Boundless Zeal is a stratagem that lets you fall back and charge with Penitent engines or any other Penitent units, because if you charge, you fight first. It's almost like fighting twice. The enemy charged you and fought, you fought back, you fell back and charged to fight again before they can attack for a second time. It's obvious which units this will work best on, but also consider that this is the fall back and shoot stratagem. It is available for any Adepta Sororitas unit, not just Penitent units. But Penitent units get to fall back and shoot and charge. Falling back and shooting is great for Dominions and their guns, Seraphim, who can move again after shooting with their Angelic Ascent rule, and Paragon Warsuit units can fall back, shoot their guns, or they could fall back and then charge back in, knowing that charging gives them fight first. You get to hit the enemy again before they can do anything. Apart from fire Overwatch if they really wanted. But when the enemy shoots us, we can get into combat. Devout Fanaticism is a surge move. A Penitent unit that got targeted by enemy attacks in the enemy shooting phase, they can move up to D6 as long as they end that move as close as possible to the closest enemy unit. And you can end that in engagement range. And then because of fight order, as neither unit has charged, you can pick your unit to fight before the enemy unit. And you don't need to have lost any models to use this, unlike other kinds of surge move. So it can be used on a Penitent engine that was the target of attacks. The enemy fired a big cannon at point blank range and missed. Well, they had their chance. It's Buzzblade time. Getting into combat means that you won't be able to be shot by other things. Except for the enemy that's in engagement range with you, they'll still be able to fire pistols if they haven't already shot this shooting phase. If you want more resistance, there's Purity of Suffering. In the fight phase or the enemy shooting phase, one of your Penitent units changes their 5+ Feel No Pain to a 4+ Feel No Pain. So Repentia got a little bit more durable, and every Repentia that survives is another one that can hit back. The Arcoflagellants got more difficult to remove, and a unit of 2 Penitent engines became more frustrating to shoot down. This stratagem lasts until the end of the phase, so you can survive attacks from multiple enemy units. Lash of Guilt is super important for getting units into combat. Combat is the home of the Penitent units. You move a Penitent engine 14 inches minimum, maybe more with the Path of the Penitent turn, and then you can charge. Oh, that Chaos Dreadnought is getting pulled back, is it? It's limping away from the fight and denying the Penitent Host bring it down. Well, here comes our best sprinter bearing down on it like a missile with buzz blades attached. Things are about to get messy. Advance and charge is really useful. You get your specialized units against their specialized target. That's more important than doing a bit more damage for the few units that got into combat. Get more of your Penitent units into combat. Passion of the Penitent is more of a boost to your output in combat. Critical hits are now on a 5+. All of the Penitent units, except for the Priest, have sustained hits built into their attacks. Think of sustained hits 1 as +1 to hit, at least for the amount of hits you are getting. 6 attacks from a single Arcoflagellant using its trigger word, hitting on a 4+, but with an even distribution of attacks. A 1, a 2, and a 3 will miss, a 4 and a 5 give you 1 hit, a 6 is 2 hits, so that is 4 successful hits out of 6 rolled. So sustained hits on a 5+ is like having +2 to hit. A 1, 2, and a 3 miss, a 4 is 1 hit, the 5 and the 6 each give 2 hits, so that is 5 successful hits out of 6 attacks. That's nasty, and the Repentia have rerolls to boost that up even more, and you should have more hits than attacks even when hitting on a 4+. And there is a way to have lethal hits as well as sustained hits on Repentia, but we're getting into the enhancements now. Catechism of Divine Penitence. A Canoness, a Palatine, or a Ministorum Priest gains the Penitent keyword if they didn't already have it, and during the battle formation setup, they can be attached to Repentia. So part 1. They gain the Penitent keyword. That model is now Penitent, and the model will get the benefit of the detachment rule, like +1 attack and +1 strength when that vow is active. The second part, the character can join Repentia. This is the only way in any detachment that you can have characters join Repentia. Adding a Palatine to Repentia will mess up the enemy. The Palatine gives your unit lethal hits, so you have sustained hits and lethal hits, and all of the Repentia are rerolling their hit rolls and wound rolls. You can get a lot of 5s that are auto wounds and also another hit. But any attacks against you easily and massively reduces your damage output. A Canoness with a jump pack joining Repentia, that gives you access to free stratagems. Sacred Command, reduce the cost of a stratagem by 1. All of the Penitent Host stratagems cost 1 command point. And with a flying character, you can extend the charge threat range because she can fly ahead of the Repentia while staying in coherency. It's sort of like having 3 more inches to a charge move. Very useful. Now you don't have to join Repentia, only you can. A jump pack Canoness could join her regular unit of Zephyrim. That unit is now a Penitent unit because there is a model with the Penitent keyword. While also remembering that the Zephyrim models are not Penitent models. But you could use Lash of Guilt, that is applied to a Penitent unit, the unit can now advance and charge, and the Zephyrim banner gives them a reroll to their advance roll and their charge roll. You can get into combat and mess the enemy up. Or use Passion of the Penitent. The Canoness will then get lethal hits and sustained hits on a 5+, the lethal and sustained hits she got from the Zephyrum's embodied prophecy. But the Zephyrim as non-Penitent models will only get their critical hits on a 6+. Sounds really good, but it's not my favorite enhancement. The Psalm of Righteous Judgment is my favorite enhancement. It's not locked to Penitent models, it's any Adepta Sororitas character, and it's the best way to manipulate miracle dice. As long as the bearer is on the battlefield, so not in a transport, not in reserves, not dead, each time an enemy unit is destroyed by a Penitent unit, you can discard a miracle dice and gain a miracle dice showing a value of a 6. So you take a miracle dice and rotate it so it shows a 6 and put it back down. So if the Mortifier's Heavy Bolters finished off a unit, you have now got a miracle dice of a 6 ready for another unit to use in the charge phase, the main place we use miracle dice in this detachment. With the Verse of Holy Piety, the priest recounts the sanctified verses. We don't know what words were said, it could be kill for the Emperor, die for the Emperor, or subscribe to Christian von Carmian's YouTube channel as an act of devotion. Each equally likely. The only real place to use it is on a Ministorum Priest and have them join an Arcoflagellant unit, the only Penitent unit that they can join. If your mind just flicked back to Catechism of Divine Penitence so they can join Repentia, no, because 1 enhancement only per character. The Verse of Holy Piety means that once per battle, you can have a vow active for the unit, even though there is no vow active for the army, or you can have 2 vows active at the same time. That vow of atonement is active for the bearer's unit in addition to any that is active for your army, even if you have already selected that vow of atonement this battle. So you could have a battle round of the Path of the Penitent, and then in the following battle round, you pick Absolution in battle, but that one specific unit also has the Path of the Penitent again, and as well. That is 3 more inches to their move to make a charge easier to happen, and then you get the bonuses to the attacks and the strength. And there's an FAQ in effect that says, if the priest was sniped out, like in the middle of Overwatch, with some precision attacks, their unit would continue to benefit from the extra vow until the end of the battle round. Refrain of Enduring Faith is for a penitent model only, so it's going to be on the priest, and while the bearer is leading a unit, models in that unit have a 5+ invulnerable save. So this is for a priest leading Arcoflagellants. 6+ going to 5+ is a good increase on the save, and it makes them more of a tar pit the enemy will struggle to get out of, adding a better invulnerable save to their 2 wounds and their Feel No Pain, which we know can already be boosted to a 4+. Sometimes tying up the enemy with a wave of disposable criminals is exactly their role. So let's look at the role of the different units. And the re-roll of the Repentia. While this unit has a Repentia Superior model, each time a Sisters Repentia model in the unit makes an attack, you can re-roll the hit roll and the wound roll. This only affects Sisters Repentia models, it is not the Superior, or any characters that join the Repentia in this detachment. Okay? There's a lot of this model or this unit going on in the Penitent Host. You have to be very focused on where it says model instead of unit. The Feel No Pain of 5+ is on all the Repentia and the Superior. The Repentia's preferred target is Power Armored Infantry with 2 wounds. We have damage 2 and we reroll the wound roll, so if the enemy was toughness 7, we still have a pretty good chance of being able to wound them. They can also hurt lighter infantry like Orcs, Traitor Guard, and the AP -2 goes through their 5+ save. You can take out light vehicles like Rhinos, but if there were enemy troops inside that can then wipe out the Repentia, it wasn't worth it. Now a question, and something I brought up before when being attacked by Von Ryans, should you take armor saves on the Superior? The Superior has a 3+ armor save, whereas assigning attacks to any of the other models, you just have your 6+ invulnerable save. Or you can deliberately fail the save by taking it on the 7+ armor save. So I think if there are far more attacks than you have models in the squad, take saves on the Superior. The unit was probably going to get wiped out entirely, so try and survive as many attacks by taking them on the Superior's save first. Assuming you are still at a 3+ save or at worst a 4+ armor save. And the Superior also has that 5+ Feel No Pain to roll after each failed armor save. Rolling the saves is going to be slow, but this is how you'll have to do it sometimes. And if you have a low miracle dice, and you really want this unit to survive, you could start with that miracle dice to pass the first save. Like, use a 3 to pass the first save before you roll the second saving throw. It's not good to lose all of the Repentia and only have a Superior left. But if I was being attacked by only a few shots, like there was 4 successful wounds on my squad of 10, don't lose the Superior because we need those rerolls. It's okay to lose a few Repentia instead. I recommend having Repentia in units of 10. Units of 5 don't do as much as you think. The best they can really do is point for point kill a Chaos Legionary or similar statted model. For the points value, I think a Mortifier is better than 5 Repentia. As Repentia are fragile and expensive, have them in a Rhino or a Repressor so that they can hide in it if the enemy declared a charge against them. We don't want to take a charge, so we'll jump back into the Repressor. Or an alternative, come from reserves with Rapid Ingress, as long as the enemy doesn't have indirect fire, and deploy them out of line of sight. Then in your coming turn, you will move them and charge with them. The Repentia will die quickly, so when you're going to charge through ruins or charge round corners, charge from out of line of sight. Because you can declare charges against enemies not in line of sight. As long as you charge from out of line of sight, the enemy cannot fire Overwatch. Any amount of Overwatch kills Repentia. But Overwatch is declared at the start of the charge move when they can't see you, so they couldn't declare it. Repentia can be quite hard to use well. If you could tie up the enemy with another one of your units, and then in the following turn, then you charge, where they cannot fire Overwatch, that's an ideal situation. The Penitent Engine and the Mortifier are a little bit easier to use because they have some defense to them. However, if they're ever hit by one thing that can take them out, they're probably going to go down, despite their feel no pain, which can make them rather annoying. And despite the similarity of the models, Penitent Engines are very fast and very distracting. The Mortifiers are more of a weapons platform that also does really well in combat. The Penitent Engine always has Penitent Flamers, plural. It's one weapon that causes 2d6 shots. The Mortifiers can have up to 2 Flamers, and each one is d6 shots. But on the Mortifiers you could also have 1 Flamer and 1 Heavy Bolter, or 2 Heavy Bolters. I see no benefit to having 1 Flamer and 1 Heavy Bolter. Mortifiers cannot advance and shoot or advance and charge as the Penitent Engine can, and the Penitent Engines will be moving quickly and firing their Assault Flamer, and then charging with the Enders Suffering Unit rule. So it's best to have Heavy Bolters on the Mortifiers that will be moving a bit slower, and that longer range and damage too is rather good for fighting enemy Chaos Space Marines, like World Eaters, like Thousand Suns. Leave the Flamers to the Penitent Engines. Despite hitting on a 3+, the Heavy Bolter is not the real weapon of the Mortifier. It is their combat weapons. So don't expose them to the enemy guns just to fire 2 Heavy Bolters. The Penitent Engine and Mortifier can have twin Penitent Flails, that's 8 attacks, with sustained hits, of course it's sustained hits, where Penitent units were going to have sustained hits, and they have twin linked. But those are 8 attacks at strength 5, AP -1, damage 1. It's pretty much the same as an Arcoflagellant's Flail. Leave the Flails to the Arcoflagellants. You can have 1 Penitent Flail and 1 Penitent Buzzblade. You don't get to attack with both weapons. In the combat phase you pick one of those weapons and attack with it. So what you have is some versatility. If you're facing 1 wound infantry or 2 wound infantry, you have the correct weapon to fight them. However, in that case, you're losing twin linked. I think you're better off with those rerolls to the wound roll. So let's have the twin Penitent Buzzblades. The classic weapon of the Penitent Engine. AP -3 and strength 10 with twin linked sounds good for fighting vehicles, but you only have damage 2 and only have 4 attacks, even with sustained hits. The Penitent Engines are better at fighting a small group of heavy infantry with high toughness and 2 wounds, like Noise Marines and Havocs. Another option on the Mortifier is to have an Anchorite Sarcophagus. This changes your save to be a 3+, but you go down to movement 7, matching the other Penitent units like the Arcoflagellants and the Repentia. I think you should do that, because having a better save is more valuable than 1 more inch of movement. In a Mortifier unit, only 1 model can have the Anchorite Sarcophagus, so if you have all of your Mortifiers as units of 1, each one of them can have an Anchorite Sarcophagus. While the Penitent Engines and the Mortifiers can fight off heavy infantry and some lighter vehicles, in much the same way as the Repentia will be targeting those units, the Arcoflagellants are different. You want to go for the lightest, weakest, and hordiest units the enemy has. You have no armor penetration, so you're not going to do great against the 3+ save of a Space Marine, and the attacks are only damage 1. But they are great at clearing enemy hordes, Orc Boys, an Imperial Guard platoon worth of models that are concentrated into 1 squad, and Tyrannid Gaunts. Always use that trigger word unless there is almost no way you will fail to wipe out the enemy. When you're rolling those hazardous tests, you might be able to survive even failed hazardous rolls because you take 3 mortal wounds, and if you can pass 2 of your 5+ feel no pain saves, your model will take 1 wound, and you will still be alive. We have no access to lethal hits in this detachment, so we can't really take on tougher creatures with low saves like demons and monsters. Big demons and monsters. Monsters that are also demons. Them. Can't really do them. You could have the Arcoflagellants wound better with a Ministorm Priest, but these days I only add a priest to use enhancements on the unit. I don't need +1 to wound if I can throw the Arcoflagellants at the correct enemy unit. If not, if the enemy has a good save, like a 2+ save, being able to wound them better isn't changing the result of the fight. The Arcoflagellants are the best unit for a priest to join, otherwise the priest is going to join Sanctifiers. Then the priest and the models get sustained hits in combat, but the Sanctifiers are not a unit for combat. So if you wanted, the Ministorm Priest could act alone. That's a relatively cheap unit to complete secondary missions, and they could carry the Psalm of Righteous Judgment if you can keep them safe. If enemies need to be taken out, you have the Zealot's Vindictor, and once per game, this priest model, just the model, can have 3 more attacks and 3 more strength. But we can't do anything about the low armor penetration. The Zealot's Vindictor is better than the power weapon, because the Zealot's Vindictor has higher strength and more damage, and you get a good flamer weapon with it. But you're probably not going to use the Priest alone, because don't forget, we can currently use Arcoflagellants in units of 3, so there is another use of being a really cheap unit to hold objectives and complete secondary missions. Especially if you're under the laws of the fun police, who won't let you have Crusaders, Death Cult Assassins, or Celestian Sacrosanct Avaline. Crusaders and Death Cult Assassins are very thematic for an Ecclesiarchy-led Penitent Host army, but even with Legends, unless you have reached the 3-unit cap for Arcoflagellants, you will take another unit of 3 Arcoflagellants as your objective holder so that they can use stratagems if they need to, like Final Redemption. Those are our Penitent units, but I implore you to also use other units to win the game. Speedy Seraphim or Zephyrim to travel to where is needed to complete missions or attack the enemy. Sisters and Dominions to hold objectives and use their simulacrums to generate miracle dice, and use Paragon Warsuits to have a unit that is equipped to take on vehicles with more than 8 wounds. 8 wounds is a simple cut-off point where the monsters and tanks of the enemy stop being something Repentier or a Penitent Engine or 2 could easily cut down. Fighting a Sentinel or a Carnifex is different to fighting a Leman Russ or a Trigon. We have a lot of units available for our range, even in the Penitent Host. If you're thinking of buying based on any of the army lists I've shown off in any of these videos where we focus on the detachments, in the description of each video are links to my affiliates where you can get Adepta Sororitas models and wargame materials, like objective markers and terrain, far cheaper than going through Games Workshop. For both our benefits, please use them if you can. The 1000 point list has a Minister and Priest with a Vindictor. They have the Verse of Holy Piety, and they lead 10 Arcoflagellants. We have 10 Battle Sisters, split by an Immolator. The Battle Sisters have melter weapons, the Immolator has a twin multi-melter. The 10 Dominions, which are going to become 2 lots of 5 Dominions, also have melter guns. The unit with the melter guns will go in the Immolator, the unit with the bolters can stay on the home objective or move to a central objective. They're a good screen because they can scout, they can get in the way of enemy charges, like in that battle I mentioned at the start of the video, where I was fighting against Tyranids, and the Raveners couldn't get closer to what they wanted to charge because the Dominions were in the way. We have 3 Arcoflagellants. I wouldn't keep them on the home objective, I would move them towards one of the central objectives. 5 Battle Sisters that are not in the Immolator could start the game on our home objective, use Defenders of the Faith, and it is sticky without any Penitent units dying in the process. The 3 Arcoflagellants can be a good first wave unit to get in there and clear off enemy very light units that may have tried to take objectives like 5 Stormboys. We have a Penitent Engine who of course has its Flamers and its Buzzblades, and 2 individual modifiers, each one having 2 Heavy Bolters, the Buzzblades, and an Anchorite Sarcophagus. And finally we have 5 Seraphim with Hand Flamers. We have a lot of lone units that can group up to take on bigger threats. And as we have lots of small units, as they die we're going to get a lot of miracle dice from their deaths. When you split a unit with an Immolator, for example, you have 2 separate units for all rules purposes. When 1 unit of 5 dies, that gives you a miracle dice. And the units are fragile, so regardless of size, they would be destroyed pretty easily. And where are we going to spend our miracle dice? It's on the charge rolls. When you spend miracle dice on a charge roll, one of the 2 dice of the charge roll can be substituted with a miracle dice. The higher the better, so if you need to succeed on a 7-inch charge, substituting one of those dice with a 6, you will succeed because the other die roll is going to be at least a 1. That's a charge roll act of faith. The basic plan of this army is to counterattack. Some units go out onto the objectives in the middle of the board if the enemy didn't get there first. So that would be 5 Scouting Dominions, the 3 Arcoflagellants, a Penitent Engine, and maybe the Immolators. They will complete secondary objectives or score the primary mission on the off chance they get to survive. The rest of the army hides behind cover and waits. If the enemy wants those tempting little circles that give them victory points, they have to move on to it. Then we can counterattack. Don't send your whole army if the enemy has only committed the equivalent of 5 Dominions and 2 Mortifiers. But there should be more of your units to feed into the grinder so you can out-attrition the enemy. It should work against all but the hordiest Genestealer Cult army or super elite armies that can take our best hit and endure. Armies like Custodes or Chaos Knights are beaten by leaving them on one objective and focusing our forces on the others. We don't need to take all the objectives, just more than them, and we win by having more victory points. Custodes and Knights rarely have the speed and abilities to keep taking our units down and also keep getting back to hold on to the objective. Where their home objectives are held by Cultists or Sisters of Silence, that's why we have the Seraphim with Hand Flamers. We can take that objective away from them pretty easily. We'll use stratagems when and where they're needed. We're not putting all of our focus on one particular stratagem's use. So we could fall back and shoot with the Seraphim or the Dominions. We could have sustained hits on a 5+ with 10 Arcoflagellants if you need to do more damage, like if you multi-charged. Or have Devout Fanaticism to move a Mortifier into the enemy, so that even if the enemy countercharges our Surge move, we can fight them, perhaps fight on death, instead of dying at range. And we have the ever-reliable Grenade Stratagem. Sisters and Dominions can throw grenades. That's what you need to take down the bigger enemy threats. Against the hordes that the enemy may have, units of 20 Orc Boys, that's where we have our 10 Arcoflagellants with the Verse of Holy Piety. We can wound Orc Boys on a 2+, because the Priest gives us +1 to wound, and with the Vow Absolution in battle, we have +1 strength, making us strength 6. We can be rather far back from the enemy, and with the Path of the Penitent used at the same time as Absolution in battle, because that Verse of Holy Piety allows it, we can move 10 inches, perhaps Lash of Guilt as well, to go an extra d6 inches, and then charge with Miracle Dice assistance to make sure that charge lands. You are crossing quite a distance and still able to make the charge. And the Battle Sisters and Dominion Simulacrum will also be there to generate some Miracle Dice for us. We're not just relying or hoping to lose units to get Miracle Dice. I see people misunderstand the Simulacrum. You roll based on the objective. So even if you had both the Simulacrum of the Dominions and the Simulacrum of the Battle Sisters in the same place, you would only roll 1 die because you roll per objective. 1 dice. 1 dice? 1 dice sounds clunky and like we lost a sister. But what happens with the Simulacrum? You roll a dice. On a 1 to 3, nothing happens. On a 4, 5, or 6, you get a Miracle Dice of that corresponding value. So if you roll a 6, you don't have to roll a die again to see what kind of Miracle Dice you get. You got a 6. So this army list should be versatile enough to deal with any of the things you see in 1000 point army lists that your opponent may have, and we have enough units and sticky objectives to control the objectives to get us the victory points to win the game. The 2000 point list is going more elite, having enough heavy damage dealing combos that we can always hurt the enemy, but without leaving us with so few units that we could not complete secondary missions. We have Morven Val and 3 Paragon Warsuits. The Paragon Warsuits have multi-melters, the Paragon Grenade Launchers, 2 Warblades and a War Mace. There is a Palatine with Catechism of Divine Penitence. They are with 10 Repentia in an Adepta Sororitas Rhino to keep them safe. For this combo, this time is the Palatine. There are 10 Dominions split by an Immolator. The Dominions with 4 Melter Guns and an Inferno Pistol will go in the Immolator, which has a twin multi-melter. The other 5 Dominions with Bolters and a Simulacrum will stay on the home objective, then their Simulacrum will generate Miracle Dice, and we'll be turning those Miracle Dice into Miracle Dice of a 6. The Hospitaller leads them. They have the Psalm of Righteous Judgment that turns those Miracle Dice into 6s. If the points had really come down in the Imagifier, I would have had an Imagifier because that better suits the theme of getting better Miracle Dice, which is part of what I was going for with this army list. One of the Imagifier's abilities lets you reroll Miracle Dice from destroyed units within 12 inches. But the Imagifier would not be moving up the board, they're staying on the home objective. They want to stay safe so that the Psalm of Righteous Judgment stays safe, and the Dominions want to stick around for that Simulacrum. There is the Triumph of St. Catherine. No bodyguard necessary. The Triumph will be running around giving a lot of support to the Penitent Host army. I have 10 Sisters Novitiates to infiltrate. As usual, they have all of the things they can take. 5 Sisters with Novitiate melee weapons, 2 Flamers, a Simulacrum, a Sacred Banner, and a Superior with a Power Sword and a Plasma Pistol. There's 5 Retributors. They have multi-melters, and the Superior has a Condemner Bolt Gun, the longest range weapon that could keep up with the multi-melters. There's 2 squads of 5 Seraphim, each squad has Hand Flamers. And then we're back to Penitent units with 10 Arcoflagellants, a unit of 3 Arcoflagellants, 2 single Mortifiers, each with the Heavy Bolters, the Twin Buzzblades, and the Anchorite Sarcophagus, and a Penitent engine with flamers and twin buzzblades. That comes to 1,995 points. The Penitent Engine's job is to move fast and break the enemy screens with their flamers and their buzzblades. If it can kill an enemy unit in turn 1, we have our first miracle dice of a 6 from the Psalm of Righteous Judgment, except it's actually the second miracle dice of a 6, because the Triumph of St. Catherine gives us a miracle dice of a 6 at the start of the battle round. The die we get from the start of the battle round gaining miracle dice becomes a 6. This army list doesn't have any battle sisters. They're not as much needed for sticky objectives beyond 1,500 point games. Still useful, but I didn't want to use them this time. The infiltrating novitiates make a good first wave, and they block enemy factions that want to push their whole army onto us right away, like Genestealer Cult Biosanctic Broodsurge army lists, or Cornate Berserker Warband hordes. Without the screen, we might have to consider putting penitent units at the front, and using, or perhaps wasting, Death Before Disgrace right away. I had tried splitting these novitiates with the Dominion's Immolator. Then I have 2 novitiate units, but one of them would have to start in the Immolator, which can't scout or move forward. So I still only have 1 infiltrating unit. Better to split the Dominions. Then I have a big infiltrating unit, I have a scouting unit, and I have another unit that can go with the Hospitaller on the home objective. The Triumph of St. Catherine is there to give us better miracle dice, increase the speed of our units, all of our units, and increase their armor penetration in combat. The relics of the Matriarch to choose are the Fiery Heart, so that all of our units within 6 inches add 2 inches to their movement characteristic, and if they're still within 6 of the Triumph when they advance or charge, you get +1 to advance, you get +1 to charge. This helps the Penitent Engine get out of the starting gate much faster. It also helps the Retributors and the Warsuits to move around ruins faster to get out there and shoot with their multi-melters. And with the Petals of the Bloody Rose, that can help the Archoflagellants. Now we get AP1, the thing that's really difficult for these units to get in the Penitent Host. We can increase our strength, we can increase our attacks, armor penetration doesn't go up other than by the Triumph of St. Catherine. And if all else fails, if we don't have anything nearby to the Triumph, it's still a powerhouse in itself with 18 attacks, and it can benefit from its own auras. It is an Adepta Sororitas unit within 6 inches of itself, and the core rules confirms that auras work on itself as long as you have the right keywords. When combining the Solemn Procession rule so that we get a miracle dice of a 6 at the start of each battle round, and the Psalm of Righteous Judgment, I don't want to see a miracle dice that is less than a 6. That's the hope. We use the miracle dice on charges and multi-melter damage, and with enough 6s to spare, which is wishful idealized thinking, but then we could pass some 6+ invulnerable saves. As long as that Hospitaller stays safe on the home objective, as long as the Repentier and the Archoflagellants and any of the Penitent Engine or Mortifiers keep destroying enemy units, we can keep getting miracle dice of a 6. It is each time an enemy unit is destroyed by a Penitent unit, we get to change one of our miracle dice into a 6. The Meltagun Sisters and Inferno Pistol Dominion Superior in the Immolator will drive at a problematic enemy, and they can help the Penitent Engine deal with infiltrators and close enemies that it would otherwise struggle against. A Penitent Engine can kill a Lictor in combat, but if that Lictor fights first, which it does, and it gets lucky and kills the Penitent Engine, that was not the plan. Meltaguns at close range do it better. The Seraphim will burn away light infantry and complete missions that other units cannot get to. They're in deep strike, that's why we have the hand flamers, because they will be in range when we deep strike, whereas the Inferno Pistols would not. Val and the Warsuits are there to deal with enemy armor. You have +1 to hit and +1 to wound versus monsters and vehicles. The Penitent units are dealing with the lighter enemy targets. So it's a lot of pressure on this one Warsuit unit to perform, so make sure that even if you are not getting your points worth of kills, you take out the enemy units that the rest of your army cannot. And they're not alone in delivering a mega strike. The Repentier disembark from a Rhino and move 10 inches with Path of the Penitent, and they charge with the Palatine at the biggest threat the enemy has, like a wall of Terminators or Massive Knights. In a, well, I'll try it and hope it works situation, I sent this block against 10 Wolfguard Terminators and was able to wipe them out. It is an expensive combo, so make sure you pick the right target and don't miss that target. You only get one shot with this unit. The 3 Archoflagellants and the Mortifiers can stand on objectives, and the Mortifier can be a good heroic intervention target, as even if they die in the process, they are likely to fight, and they're another unit that can die and give the Retributors following behind, out of line of sight, a +1 to hit and +1 to wound against the enemies that took them out. Get Retribution. The stratagems to focus on is Boundless Zeal, so we can fall back and shoot or fall back and charge with the Paragon Warsuits. Lash of Guilt is maybe needed to try and get one of your units into combat if they would not make it. It's essentially a 3d6 charge, think of it that way. And for one turn, Passion of the Penitent, so that the Repentier and their Palatine have critical hits on a 5+. We have a few Melter Guns, but for more problematic enemies, there is one more stratagem to use. You know the one. It ends with AIDS. That's not a good way of describing it. It starts with a G. And as this has been a rather intense week for me to finish all these videos, if you wouldn't mind using the Ko-fi link in the description and dropping me some tip money, that would be appreciated. If you want to see more of the Penitent Host with an example perfect battle, that is in another Penitent Host video. We are done with Sisters Week, but never truly done. To help you know your nuns beyond November, this is a video that covers all of the units the Adepta Sororitas have with tactics and detachment support. Have a great day of 40k.